Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Presented by Hero Insurance Broking and Hero Homes.
Hello and welcome to Mindmine Mondays. Today our focus is on the education sector. Year 2020, is this the new normal for education in India and around the world? That's the big question we are asking today. Year 2020 is of course a year that we are perhaps not going to forget for a long time to come. The year that we have all gone through a global pandemic. The year that a pandemic has disrupted our lives in more ways than one. So today we are focusing on the impact on education and learning. And for this, I'm joined by the Deputy Chief Minister and Education Minister of Delhi, Mr. Manish Sisodia. And I'm also joined by Sunil Kant Munjal, the Chairman of Hero Enterprise, who's of course also going to be my co-moderator as we speak to Mr. Sisodia about all that the government has been doing to ensure that learning is not disrupted. First up, I want to ask you, how equipped are the public schools in Delhi at this point in time to leverage technology and ensure that there is no disruption in learning for children, particularly perhaps after the summer break?
Before I answer your question, मैं थोड़ा सा आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि दिल्ली के गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में अभी जो पिछले 1-2 महीने में लॉकडाउन के दौरान एफर्ट्स किए गए हैं वो बहुत एनकरेजिंग है. 80% घरों में हम पहुंचने में कामयाब रहे हैं थ्रू मोबाइल, थ्रू टेक्नोलॉजी. इट्स नॉट थ्रू इंटरनेट ओनली, बट हमने फोन लाइन का भी इस्तेमाल किया है, हमने एसएमएस का भी इस्तेमाल किया है. यूजिंग दैट ऑलमोस्ट 80% बच्चों के घरों तक हम पहुंचने में कामयाब रहे हैं 16 लाख बच्चों में से, विच इज अ बिग थिंग. हमने 6 से 12वीं तक के लिए ऑनलाइन कैरियर लॉन्चर एक बड़ा ग्रुप है देश भर में जो प्रतियोगिता परीक्षा की तैयारी कराता है. उनके साथ मिलके बहुत सारे सब्जेक्ट्स पर ऑनलाइन मॉड्यूल तैयार कराए जो हमारे गवर्नमेंट स्कूल के टीचर्स ने ही तैयार किए. और अब हम रोजाना एक लिंक भेजते हैं, या तो कुछ बड़ी क्लासेस के लिए हम ऑनलाइन सिस्टम का लिंक भेजते हैं, छोटे बच्चों के लिए हम और बल्कि नर्सरी से लेके 5वीं 6वीं तक के बच्चों के लिए हम एक्टिविटी ओरिएंटेड भेजते हैं.
So मनीष जी, मेरे को आपको ना दो तरह के सवाल पूछने हैं आपको. By its very nature, education is very conservative. It doesn't easily change. At the same time, education is one of the sectors worldwide for the last 10 to 15 years which has been talking about inducting technology. So MOOCs classes शुरू हो गई, remote teaching शुरू हो गई, कई तरह की चीजें आस्ते आस्ते चलती जा रही थी, smart classes शुरू हो गए. Many things have been ongoing for a while. How did you think of bringing many of these practices into the government schools in Delhi? Because typically government schools are the last ones normally to get these kind of initiatives inducted into education. So where did you think of this? And I have a second part, and this is a step back. There are 1.2 billion children out of schools right now. And एक तरफ हमारा pandemic चल रहा है ये health का, दूसरी तरफ there is a second pandemic going on, the economic pandemic. There is also an education, learning and a skills pandemic at the same time. My question to you is this the new abnormal for the current moment?
You are right, Sunil, क्योंकि इसकी कोरोना की तो शायद कोई वैक्सीन आ जाएगी, कोई मास्क से भी हम कंट्रोल कर लेंगे, लेकिन इकोनॉमी के लिए ना कोई मास्क आएगा ना कोई वैक्सीन आएगी. हम सब लोगों को अलग से ही सोचना पड़ेगा. वी कांट इवन वेट फॉर अ वैक्सीन टू कम. जो बच्चों में हमने प्रयोग किया, मैं बच्चों से मैंने बताया फीडबैक लेता हूँ. इंटरेस्टिंगली टीचर्स और बच्चों ने दोनों ने मुझे बताया कि वीडियो लेक्चर में फायदा उनको ये हो रहा है ऑनलाइन में कि एक बार तो ऑनलाइन अटेंड करते हैं और फिर टीचर के उस पॉइंट को समझने में, क्योंकि वो सारी रिकॉर्डिंग उनके पास में उपलब्ध है, which we have never thought कि ये फायदा भी होगा. बच्चों मेरे वीकली जो रिव्यू सेशंस हैं उनकी भी हमने रिकॉर्डिंग ऑनलाइन डाली हुई है, so that public can also watch. उसमें बच्चे खुल के बता रहे हैं जी हमें तो अच्छा इसलिए लग रहा है क्योंकि हम रिकॉर्डिंग को बार-बार देख सकते हैं, बार-बार सुन सकते हैं. मैम ने एक बार बताया था, लेकिन हम उसको बार-बार सुन के चीजों को समझ सकते हैं और नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए हमारे मन में कुछ क्वेश्चंस होते हैं तो वो मिल जाते हैं हमको. This was the positive side. Of course, it can't replace the one-to-one teaching system. इकोनॉमी को जिस तरह का झटका लगा है, I don't think किसी के पास भी इसका सॉल्यूशन है, बिकॉज जिससे आप बात करो हर आदमी परेशान है कि यार हमने कभी ऐसा नहीं देखा और इसके कोई प्रेसिडेंसीज नहीं है कि इससे रिकवर करने का कोई हमारे पास में फॉर्मूला हो. Everybody is discussing, trying to do something new, but nobody has the answers.
Right, you're absolutely right, Mr. Sisodia. Nobody really has the answers, and everybody is just imagining what the new normal is going to be. Perhaps it's going to be totally different from what we are thinking about right now. But as you look into the future, क्या आप अब जब आप education sector में government जब invest कर रही है, is your focus going to be on investing more in technology across schools, across colleges, across institutions?
इट्स ए कोइंसिडेंस कि 5 साल पहले जब सरकार में हम आए थे तो हम कमरे बनाने पे बात कर रहे थे और उस वक्त एक क्लासरूम में 135 बच्चे एनरोल होते थे। वो एवरेज था 2015 का गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में। उसको हमने खूब कमरे बनवाए, खूब अलग अलग तरीके से काम किया, तो आज उसको कम से कम हम 70-80 तक बच्चों तक एवरेज लेकर आए हैं। चुनाव के बाद जो बजट में लेके आया वो बिफोर कोरोना लेके आया था और इट वाज ए कोइंसिडेंस कि उस वक्त हमने दिल्ली में एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट का अपना एक स्टूडियो लाइव और रिकॉर्डेड प्रोग्राम्स करने के लिए, टीचर्स के लिए बनाने के लिए हमने बजट भी रखा हुआ था। हमने 3 साल के अंदर अंदर अपने सारे, हमारे यहाँ 40,000 क्लासरूम्स हैं करीब, हमने सारे 40,000 क्लासरूम्स को 3 साल के स्टैगर्ड पीरियड में डिजिटल क्लासरूम, ऑनलाइन क्लासरूम बनाने का टारगेट, इट्स ए मैटर ऑफ कोइंसिडेंस कि हमने पहले ही रखा था। आज हम जो टेक्नोलॉजी की बात कर रहे हैं वो 2 महीने पहले हमारे जो बजट, 2.5 महीने पहले हमने जो बजट तैयार किया एजुकेशन का अगले 5 साल के लिए विजन का पहला बजट था, उसमें भी रखा। पर हम इतनी तेजी से वी विल बी फोर्स्ड टू एक्सपेरिमेंट दिस, वो हमने नहीं सोचा था। तो वी आर ग्लैड कि हमने इसको इस्तेमाल किया और आज इस पर कहीं और जितना हमने सोचा था उससे तेजी से हम काम कर पाएंगे। इन 1 year or so you will see lot of changes in government school system also, जहां ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन would be a big reality in terms of, हो सकता है, I don't want to give any news while I say this, but हो सकता है 6 दिन के स्कूल की जगह फिजिकल स्कूल 3 दिन का और 3 दिन बेस्ट टीचर दिल्ली का कोई ऑनलाइन क्लास ले रहा हो उसी पे सारे बच्चों की मिला के। ये सब भी हम तलाशेंगे अब।
Right, and Mr. Sisodia, I know that you have a time constraint, but before we let you go, I want to ask you this. This is a very, very harrowing time, particularly for those students जो कि pass out हो रहे हैं 12th standard से इस year, या फिर those who are passing out of college and joining the job, the workforce in a recession. So for all those students, a message from the government of Delhi. What does the road ahead look like for these particular students? And आपका क्या मैसेज होगा इस पूरी स्टूडेंट कैटेगरी के लिए?
मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा स्टूडेंट से भी खास तौर से कि इट्स अ टफ टाइम, वी ऑल आर पासिंग थ्रू अ वेरी टफ टाइम, इंक्लूडिंग दे एंड एवरीबॉडी। सो वी हैव टू मेंटेन द कॉन्फिडेंस ऑन आवरसेल्फ, क्योंकि आज जनवरी में दुनिया जहां थी उसको हम सब लोग ही लेके आए थे यहाँ तक, टेक्नोलॉजी से, इकोनॉमी में जहां भी खड़ी थी, और आगे भी हम ही सब लोग लेके चलेंगे। सो उस कॉन्फिडेंस को बना के रखें। मुख्यमंत्री जी ने सारे वाइस चांसलर्स जो दिल्ली के यूनिवर्सिटीज के हैं उनके साथ में एक वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी और उसमें सबसे रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि जिन फाइनल ईयर के जो बच्चे हैं जिनको उनके प्लेसमेंट्स हो चुके हैं, उनको एग्जाम की वजह से किसी की प्लेसमेंट वेस्ट ना हो, इसलिए उनके सबको हम एक प्रोविजनल सर्टिफिकेट दे दें डिग्री का, ताकि वो कहीं जहां जाके उनको जॉब करना है वो जॉब ज्वाइन कर सकें। मैंने सीबीएसई के लिए भी उनसे रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि 83 सब्जेक्ट्स के अभी एग्जामिनेशंस बचे हैं और शायद आप 83 सब्जेक्ट्स के एग्जामिनेशन लेने के लिए बहुत देर कर देंगे अगर आप जुलाई अगस्त में ले रहे होंगे, तो व्हाई नॉट पास दोज किड्स लाइक यू हैव ऑलरेडी डायरेक्टेड टू पास ग्रेड 9 एंड ग्रेड 11 किड्स की, नहीं इनको पास कर देते हैं बेस्ड ऑन देयर परफॉर्मेंस इन हाउस एग्जामिनेशंस। सो वो कर दें ताकि अल्टीमेटली हमको बच्चे की परफॉर्मेंस पे, बच्चों के ओवरऑल, सिर्फ एक एग्जाम को हमारे हिसाब से उसने नहीं दिया और हम उसको अब अपने सिस्टम का हिस्सा नहीं मानेंगे। आई थिंक वी शुड रेस्पेक्ट दैट टैलेंट और उस बच्चे का भी कॉन्फिडेंस बनेगा। दैट्स व्हाट आई हैव रिक्वेस्टेड टू हिम एंड आई थिंक दीस आर द सॉल्यूशंस इन माय ओपिनियन।
Thank you very much, Mr. Sisodia. Thank you for taking out time and joining us on this very special conversation today. Of course, nobody knows what the new normal for education is going to look like post 2020, but we are all in this together, and I'm sure that with stakeholders like the ones who are joining us today and visionaries and policymakers like yourself, we are going to get through this. Welcome back. On this very special show today, I'm in conversation with eminent stakeholders from the education sector to learn about how year 2020 is going to define a new normal for education in India and around the world. And in this segment, I'm now joined by some more stakeholders: Anil D. Sahasrabudhe, Chairman of AICTE; Arun Kapur, Director of the Royal Academy, Bhutan, and former Director of Vasant Valley School, New Delhi; Gaurav Munjal, co-founder and CEO of Unacademy; Professor John Verghese, Principal of St. Stephen's College, New Delhi; and Sunil Kant Munjal, Chairman of Hero Enterprise. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Professor Sahasrabudhe, if I can begin with you, at AICTE, of course, one would think that a technical college, a technical institution was perhaps the best poised to deal with a pandemic. You already had smart classes and technology embracement going on in a big way, didn't you? And what sort of operational changes have you had to bring about in order to minimize the damage that this pandemic has done to learning?
Like Manish Sisodia ji said, that we were already prepared for this kind of a situation. Not that this pandemic was known to us a priori, but as far as technical education is concerned, use of technology was at the forefront, and therefore, whether it is starting off the Swayam portal, which is MOOCs portal, which is indigenous, almost similar to what edX and Coursera does, has been in position for last 3 years. Both UGC and AICTE had said that 20% of the courses can be had from this portal, and they will be added to the transcript of the respective universities. So in some way, we had started online education at the national level. And for last 2.5 years, one more phenomenon which we have been talking about is the attention span of students being reduced in the classroom with the routine type of lecturing. And therefore, whether it is called as flipped classroom, you call it as blended learning, that us have to tell students in advance which topic is going to be covered, and some of the best videos and the content that is available on the net, students will watch that and come prepared, and solving of the difficulties, and also maybe problem solving, in teams. And that is what was being practiced. And those institutions who followed all of this, they were very successful. And some of them did not practice, of course. So now this pandemic actually literally forced all such institutions who had covered about 70-75% of the curriculum, and the remaining 25% of the curriculum was yet to be covered. They were all forced to adopt this. And I am sure that about 70-75% of the institutions have been able to transform and translate into online education.
Absolutely. So the mixed mode of learning that you're talking about is perhaps going to be our new normal. But let me also bring in Professor John Verghese at this point. Professor, how challenging is it for a legacy institution like Delhi University, that as far as educators are concerned, educators who have 3-4 decades of experience, for them to adopt very quickly to technology? What's the experience been like?
At a place like St. Stephen's, one of the things that we prepare our young people to face is change. And so while we have been talking about 2020 being the new normal, I will not fully agree, because I think changes keep happening all the time. And one of the things educational institutions need to prepare our students for is change and how to relate to that change. Now, in terms of being adaptable to the change, like you said, students are more adaptable. They are young, they are more open than, let's say, middle-aged people like me. So we need to adapt ourselves. There's no question there. There's no choice there. We have to adapt. But what we tend to forget is that there have been several ways in which technology has been constantly forward. For example, nobody seems to be looking at radio or television as options to spread the kind of education that we need to do in a lockdown period like this. In India, we have more than 200 radio stations, and the footprint of the national television channel is huge. So why is it that we are not looking at these options, but we are dependent largely on internet technologies? And with internet technologies, I must say that we have limitations of access and we have limitations of the quality of the internet access which is available.
Right. So that's an interesting idea that you've thrown out there to, teach using radio, using television. Great ideas there. Professor Arun Kapur, if I may come to you, you've seen the education sector very closely for the last 4 decades. And first up, I want to ask you, have you ever seen this kind of disruption to learning the world over in the last 40 years of your experience?
I don't think anybody has. This is, but also what we need to understand that, it's only been since March that the lockdown has kind of affected most parts of the world. And we are only in the beginning of May. So it was halfway through March. So there may be a month and a half. So that's what surprises me, that in a month and a half, not even 2 months, the whole world has come to its knees, right? So we're not talking that something has, whacked us for the last 6 months. It's just not even 2 months. And whether you look at the economic situation, whether you look at the health situation, whether you look at the education system, everything and everybody, for most parts of the world, have in a matter of 2 months, the whole world has come to a stand. So it just shows us how fragile most of the systems were, how fragile the mindset was, and how fragile also, therefore, our education system must have been, because it's through these education system that most people have come through. And this fragility is something that we need to really reflect on. This is an opportunity. So whether you call it the new normal or, you can give it any name, but this is a time to stop and reflect actually on what was it that drove us. Was it, our desire, our selfishness, that this superficiality, which in less than 2 months has just brought us to our knees. So therefore, what is it that in the education system? So you're asking me, have I seen something like this in the 40 years? I mean, that's a question I don't think anybody needs to even try and answer, like where Professor John Verghese said and Professor Anil said that, change, what is coming through the change is the constant.
And Gaurav, coming to you, thank you so much for being patient and listening in all this while. And I want to ask you one, of course, perhaps the best of times for a business like yours. What sort of a demand surge have you seen in the last 2 months in particular? What forces is Young India looking at this point in time? And two, when we talk, everyone is talking of online becoming an integral part of the new normal. So at Unacademy, what is the vision that you have for education in India post-2020?
Thanks for asking. I think that's a great question and very relevant to us. I would like to give some context that Unacademy started when I was a third-year engineering student at NMIMS Mumbai, and I started creating video lectures for the curriculum that I was studying, and I posted them on YouTube. And then few months later, those videos were watched by a lot of people. And this is like a 20-year-old kid who started a YouTube channel and who, like, the videos are being watched by many people. And then we went from 1 million video views a month, couple of years back on YouTube, to 165 million video views last month. And I think we are seeing upwards of $7 to $8 million of revenue monthly now. And I think within the next 2-3 months, we'll be a unicorn company in India. But I would also like to debate that we were seeing that kind of growth before coronavirus. Because what was happening was, and we are in the competitive exams market space, what was happening there was that when you cannot scale quality of education if there is no online element, the fundamental difference or the user experience or the NPS score that we have for a learner sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 city and getting access to those teachers at much less cost. I mean, do you know that it costs around 1.2 lakh to enroll in a coaching center offline, and this does not include your accommodation or your food expenses, etc.
Right.
So I think what online education will also do is it will give a level playing field. Education should not be a privilege.
Okay, so let me get closing thoughts from all of you. Let me start with Professor John Verghese. What is your one idea for the new normal of education in 2020, sir?
My idea is that we need to brace ourselves for greater changes, and most importantly, the crux of education is to be adaptable.
All right. Adaptiveness, of course, change is the only constant. Professor Kapur?
I think what we need to also understand, what I said earlier, that we have to move away from just looking at cerebral development, and we need to look at blended, which is not just technical and but the bringing together of the human mind and the human relationships with other human beings, which has unfortunately been ignored for a long time. I think going forward, we have to disregard what is it that we're going to learn. We have to learn how to learn.
Professor Sahasrabudhe, your final words. What is the new normal going to be according to you, or an idea that perhaps could help the Indian education sector going forward from here?
It's not just intellectual or cerebral capability, but holistic education requires, whether it is not just physical, social, emotional, spiritual, and therefore the kind of universal human values which we are incorporated as credit course. It's not extracurricular, sir. It is part of the curriculum, 3 credit course, and it is not just theory but experiential, so that you will start feeling that you are one with that automatically through this what I say student induction program in the beginning for 3 weeks and then during the semester. I think that is where we need to go. So use technology, use blended learning, blended in all sense.
Gaurav, your final thoughts?
I think this is the new normal. If we only accept this as the new normal, we will be able to embrace it, and if we are able to embrace it, then we will be able to be part of the disruption. Otherwise, we will be disrupted by somebody else who is embracing it.
That's well said, Gaurav. And finally, Mr. Munjal, a final word to you. What's the new normal according to you going to be for Indian education?
I think it would be a shame to let the crisis go to waste. So I think we need to make a step change in our thinking about education, in the process, in the pedagogy, in the whole system of how we approach it, and genuinely use education to allow people to become the best versions of themselves.
Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us here today and sharing insights into all that the education sector is doing to ensure that learning remains uninterrupted as we deal with this global pandemic. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Presented by Hero Insurance Broking and Hero Homes.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.